It doesn't get any better than this. When you and I get to harvest and we get to see the reward and the efforts of a year of hard work. But when we go out in the field and we harvest, many times we would set combines, we would see a lot of loose kernels in the ground and bushels lost that come out of the corn head. So at 360, we went after that and we designed a product called 360 Yield Saver. It's all about putting brushes on the gathering chain. So as the ear comes down and it hits into the head, we cushion the butt of that ear and we keep a lot more kernels on the ear itself. But any kernels that do get loose with the brushes overlap, we're able to capture those. And we're able to keep all of that coming into the grain tank itself. So when we come out and we measure off to check head loss, in this case we measured 10 feet, and you got parked the combine here, you can see the first 4 rows have the 360 Yield Saver brushes in them, and then the last 4 rows here are standard OEM. And so I had harvested in here, stopped, shut the head down, and backed up. And it's a random test, and you'll find that when you take it, sometimes you'll find considerable amount of loss in kernels, and other times not so much. The goal for us is to save 80%. And in this case, it was a slam dunk. We had 55 kernels over here that we put a flag by each kernel, and over here on the Yield Saver side, we only had 1. And so it kind of looked like, wow, what a tremendous result. At the same time, you can see the case here in the background. And we did the same thing over there in that 12-row case. We had the first 6 rows Yield Saver, and the next 6, we had OEM. We had that case head shut down as tight as it could possibly go. We ran both these heads right a little over 600 RPMs, and so we're running here at 3.5 to 4 mile an hour. And then over there, we had a 65% savings. So it ranges. I guess I like that number, 99 and 65, because we averaged them together, we're right at 82%. And so you'll find as you go through the field, depending upon the hybrid, depending upon the moisture. In this case, we're at 17.9 here today, but we've seen these kind of losses even in 28% corn. The goal is for you and I to capture every kernel. When we went after the problem of kernels getting out of the corn heads, we decided to make a simple solution. So we went and tried to cover the gap that you see here on the deck plates. And these deck plates are all the way closed, but yet there's kernels going through. So we designed a brush body that goes right on a bracket on the chain itself. With 2 screws, you can go ahead and get a simple installation on this. The question always comes is how long will they last? And we realize that everybody's situation is different. And so we see anywhere from the extremes of 100 acres a row, we see as high as 170 and over a row. So as a company, we're saying about 150 acres per row before we replace the brush. Year 2, you purchase just the brush blocks themselves and you replace them onto your existing chain that comes with it. And so very simple to manage and to work with. But remember, it's all about cushioning. So as we see these kernels coming off of the ear itself, and so even if you have wear, and at the end of the season, those brushes start to gap, we still get tremendous cushion. And the tests that we've done, we're still picking up a lot of savings. We talk about best practices with the Yield Saver chain, and it comes down to understanding that ground speed is critical when you and I harvest. When I walk in and we're behind a combine and I see the stalks leaning in the direction the combine went, I realize the grower is running his head as slow as he can. The beautiful thing about Yield Savers are now we can speed the head back up and get it in the proper RPM so ground speed and head speed start to match. And so for an example, at 4 mile an hour, a 620 head speed, and there's a chart that's available that shows you exactly head speed to ground speed and what it looks like. Then to the deck plates themselves. Most of us, have been running for years the deck plates as tight as we can get them. So we're running them just so a stalk just comes through of about 1/8 of an inch on each side. We're going to go ahead and open those deck plates up now so we get good feeding right down through the bristles. So we're going to ask for at least 1/4 inch on each side of that stalk, or probably a good 3/8 wider than you've ever run them in the past. But with the cushion and capturing of the bristles above, you're going to be in really good shape. As you and I harvest corn, we sit in the seat of that combine cab, and we look out and we see the kernels bouncing around that corn head, and then we take the time to back up and look underneath. It becomes a pretty easy decision that something has to be done. But at the same time, does it pay to invest in the Yield Saver system? Let's take an Iowa farmer that had a 12-row corn head set up, 6 rows of Yield Saver and 6 without, through the whole 2,000 acres. And let's use his numbers to see what kind of return on investment did he really get. Because at the end of the day, you'll hear Greg say, of the 23 years of inventing farm technology, this one here gets all my buttons pushed. So let's take a look at the numbers. So he had a 12-row head, and he's working on 2,000 acres of corn. And he started at 23% moisture, and by the time he finished, he was down to 15% moisture. And that's a pretty normal spread. On our farm, we started 28, and we like to get done by the time it's 18. But in this case, 23 to 15, and we measured and repeated checks field after field. He was able to save 2 bushel an acre with the Yield Saver. And so if we start to do the math, and in a 350 corn market, some of us would like to say today, sure wish we could get there on cash corn, but in a 350 corn market, over a 3-year period, he's able to put gross dollars of $41,900 in his pocket. And let's talk about what's the investment side. Well, we know year 1, he bought 12 times $600, so he's at $7,200 out of pocket year 1. Year 2, he bought 12 brushes for $275 a row, and so he's going to have $3,300 2 years in a row. And so with the $3,300, now he's up to $13,800 invested with his 360 dealer over a 3-year period. But you bring that over here underneath the $41,900 gross dollars, and you start to see the kind of numbers that you and I haven't seen in ag in years and years. Net for his farm family and where he's farming, he was able to put $28,100 net in his pocket over 3 years. Pretty exciting stuff. When we're out scouting, whether it's a cornfield or a bean field, we're always evaluating how our harvest pass went the previous fall. And in this case, as we see volunteer corn right beside this corn row, we start to look closely and we say, where did this corn loss come from? Was it up in the header or was it out the back and it come over the top of the sieves and went through the straw spreader? In this case, it came off the head. We can see all these individual kernels that were lost went ahead and sprouted. And this here is exactly what 360's Yield Saver chains are all about. Can we close off that added opening of the deck plates and eliminate and put all these guys in the grain tank to sell to town? Versus where we come in and we see now that they're in here and they're going to create and draw nitrogen, and they're going to withdraw nitrogen and sunlight out of this corn crop. So it's always good for you and I to say, what are the areas that we can improve in everything that we're doing in the previous season?